Hi, this is Andrew Nemec, the Oregonian and Oregon Live, joined by Oregon high school football expert, Eforce football coach, recruiting coordinator, everything, Jordan Johnson. Jordan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, buddy.
You recently released your top 50 sophomores in the state of Oregon. Normally, when you release a list, we've talked about it ahead of time. I have my own list. We compare and contrast, but you're so far ahead of me. I'm doing some basketball stuff, still finishing up spring football starting for Oregon and Oregon State. I don't have my list yet, so we're relying on you. I've got some theories, some ideas, but we're going to have to go off your list. And I have to say, this is the first time we've ever done a podcast where I had to have significant notes coming in. Most of the time we say, here's the topic. I jot down 10 names, 15 names, maybe what high school they go to and what offers they have, and we just go. We know heights and weights. We know who's recruiting them. We know who's involved. But I have to have serious notes, and I see that you just have basically initials and last names. So you're already fired up, ready to go, and got everything memorized.
It's fun, man. These sophomores are going to be the future, and this happens really, really quick. So we're going to see a lot of these kids, especially this off season, break out and be those next guys that we're all talking about. We all remember these juniors just from a couple years ago when a lot of them people didn't know a thing. So it's an interesting cycle, and with the top 25, I mean, there's still going to be some, pretty significant movement because of how young the kids are. I mean, there's going to be additions, subtractions, people that move in, injuries, a host of other things. But for the most part, I feel pretty good on the top 25 that we have here right now.
You look at the current class, and guys like Elijah Molden, Marlon Tuipaluto, the 1-2, we'd have had those guys when they were sophomores. They'd have been right up there at 1-2. Some of the guys at 8, 9, 10, maybe Travis McKay, Cody Shear, Alex Forsyth, they may have been in the honorable mention category, and they've worked their way into top 10 players. So my guess would be of your top 10, 6 to 7 of them will still be right there in that top 10 somewhere. 2 or 3 from the honorable mention list will move up, and you might see one guy that we don't even really know about yet that either moves into the area or just kind of hits a growth spurt or gets faster or puts in the work and comes from nowhere and hits that top 10. But I think we're getting a pretty early quality look at who's going to be there 2 years from now in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, with the linemen, a few of them that you just referenced, I mean, especially being 15, 16 years old and still a sophomore, kids grow. I mean, 3-4 inches at a time. So
Sure.
there's a ton of stuff that happens. Linemen specifically would be my best guess as to individuals that are going to jump up the list. The skill kids, you can project relatively who's going to be and who is the top kids within the state of Oregon. A lot of these kids are traveling with us 7-on-7 wise. So, but from a projection standpoint, I would agree with you that there is going to be a couple kids in the top 10 next year that we don't have right now.
Well, again, just like you said, the skill guys are easier to project. You've known about Connor Neville since he was an 8th grader. Known about Elijah Molden since junior high. Marlon Tuipaluto, I know he's a defensive lineman, but another guy you've known about for a long time. David Morris, as a sophomore, I went and told him you're going to play in the Pac-12. It's not hard to see the skill guys. It's harder to understand those linemen and how they're going to develop simply because, you look at a guy like Cody Shear, I think he's gained like 40 or 50 pounds since he was a sophomore. So it's a totally different player when you're 240 versus 280, 285. Let's get into your class of 2018 top 10. I want to start with the honorable mention because, like you said, there's a top 10, and that's great, but there are a number of guys who could easily jump up this list. Who are a few of the guys that you really like that maybe are honorable mention right now but could potentially work their way into being a Pac-12 Big Sky quality talent in the next year, and you wouldn't be surprised?
Yeah, so Jake Descartes committed to Arizona State for baseball, one of the top baseball players in America, the QB for Lake Oswego. Traveled out to Vegas with us and was the quarterback of our underclassmen team, did a phenomenal job. Just one of those kids that is pretty much good at whatever he does. His dad was a D1 guy at Nebraska, played in the Yankees organization. His younger brother Thomas is a baller. He's a kid that's going to be the leader of that Lake Oswego group. For those people that don't know, Lake Oswego 2018, 19, and 20, those classes, LO is going to be a state title contender coming up for the next few seasons. They're legit up and down the board. They're going to have linemen. They got a bunch of skill kids, and Jake is got some of that Timmy Tawa just pinpoint accuracy, super smart, and refuses to be anything less than the top player on the field. So Jake's a kid. I think if he wanted to play football, he could, but obviously with his baseball ability, I think he'll still lean there.
Amir McGee, running back from Franklin's, another one we should mention. Definitely the top running back in the PIL. Has a chance to be the top running back in the state this year. This next fall, he's a junior. There aren't a lot of true college football prospects at running back right now. We've hit a gap. Thomas Tyner, Ryan Nall, Cameron Scarlett, and suddenly we're hitting a group where there isn't a lot of D1 running back talent. Amir McGee has a chance to maybe be there. What do you see him being potentially down the road here?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I mean, he's 5'10", 1,398 yards and 16 touchdowns this last season. First team All-League running back as a sophomore. But once again, you have to have that Pac-12 speed, that D1 speed, if you want to compete at that level. And that's something right now that is a question mark. I love Amir. Amir is a phenomenal football player. But once again, the individuals that you referenced, the Scarlets, the Nalls, they either have size and some unique ability or straight speed.
Thomas Tyner, right.
Braden Lindsay, 4.47 laser speed, something where coaches can say, look, we do not have to question this. We can see it. It's documented. Here it is. So Amir's a kid, will be one of the best players in the state of Oregon, will be a PIL Player of the Year candidate in the next 2 seasons, phenomenal athlete. Cole Turner, Clackamas, 6'5", 190-pound wide receiver. Another kid that I think is going to be a baller. He had 16 catches, 215 yards, and a couple touchdowns this past year. Another kid I really like, Kwai Natasa, the slot out of Westland, first team All-League slot, returns punts, kicks, does whatever you want. The exception to the rule at 5'9", $165, will break your ankles in the open field and just can kind of bounce, bob, weave, accelerate, do what he does. Super fun to watch. It'll be fun to watch him versus Teron Bradford, another kid on the honorable mention list in that opening game this upcoming season. They always open up, OC and West Lynn, against one another. So those are definitely some of the top up-and-coming next year's junior slots and skill position kids that we'll be looking at.
Teron Bradford's the first kid we mentioned that has this going on, but there's a number, as we'll go up this list, that have an older brother that plays D1 football or recently just played D1 football. Obviously, Trevon is already at Oregon State. He's getting ready for spring practice. I believe they start today. So he's already getting going. Teron's his younger brother. That is going to be a recurring theme in this top 10 with, I think, 4 or 5 different guys that they're the younger brother of a guy you've definitely heard of before. Number 10 on your list, defensive tackle C.J. Davis, 6'2", 260 pounds. Not quite that Marlon Tuipulotu level, but a quality defensive tackle in his own right.
Yeah, CJ is just a beast, man. Go watch his film or watch how much he requires a consistent double team, and he's just getting started. He was second team All-League this last year. He should have been first. Just a bruiser in the middle, super quick, good basketball player. It shows off that overall athleticism, and he's going to get bigger. I mean, you can project him to be a legit 6'3", maybe just a little under, and 275, and super fast. So those are the type of guys that I think if he gets himself out on the circuit, he's going to, because in the PIL you're going to have to prove yourself elsewhere, and he's going to have a couple big off seasons doing his thing at some collegiate camps and showcases and so on. So I really, really like CJ. I think he's going to be one of the top defensive players in Oregon, and if he continues to work and do his thing, I like where he projects.
Number 9, Corvallis offensive lineman Marco Brewer just started working out with line pro coach Alex Linenkohl, which honestly tends to be synonymous with big-time recruit, it seems like lately. He's got Central Catholic's Travis McKay, Sheldon's Cody Shear, West Lynn's Alex Forsyth. Obviously, those guys are the top 2017 linemen. And now, you look at this list, there's 2 guys above Marco Brewer on this list, and Linenkohl works with both of those guys. So now he basically is working with the top 7 unquestioned top linemen in the state. Marco Brewer's got a chance to be really talented and really highly recruited. 6'4", 270 pounds. Marco Brewer, what do you think?
Yeah, I love Marco Brewer, man. Lenny, as you touched on, is training the top 7, 8, 9 linemen in the state. Marco's traveling up from Corvallis to train with Alex, and with his frame, 6'4", all of 6'4", 270, plays hoops. You can see once again just how coordinated he is when he's moving on the basketball floor. But I think Marco, he was first team All-League O-line, second team All-League D-line as a sophomore, And I think he's going to be a big-time D1 kid just with that frame, because he's going to fill out, get some of that man strength, still being as young as he is right now. I really like Marco from an offensive line standpoint, and I think separate from Spreen, who we'll talk about, he'll be the next tackle next to Dawson that will lead here in the state of Oregon.
Number 8, and I really think this is the beginning. 8 through 4 to me are all really close, and it's going to depend on the next couple years. Number 8, Central Catholic linebacker Malachi Salou, the younger brother of Navy offensive lineman TJ Salou. Malachi was one of 4 Oregon players invited to the U.S. Army All-American Combine. He's 6'2", 225 pounds, and might be the best pure football player right now on this list. Obviously, some argument to be made with Chase Cota and a couple of the other guys, but Malachi Salou is sound and loves football. He's got a chance, in my opinion, to climb way up this list over the next 2 years.
Yeah, Malachi comes from a football family. Just has been doing this from a very, very young age, learned from some great people, and moves so well for a kid that big. When we were out, he was out as part of our 7-on-7 group, and for him to move his hips and be as fluid as he is with that size and still be so young, it tells you a lot about what he will be moving forward. Speed is everything. You can be his side, but if you don't move, great. It's not, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So Malachi can run. He's smart. He projects well with regards to knowing where plays are going before the snap. And Malachi's a kid that I think has a huge upside with his genes and his just overall love of the game.
Malachi Salou's value goes up in modern football too, because he's asked to do and can do so much. In the 80s, you wanted a big guy that could plug holes and just hit people. Now, linebackers are asked to drop back into coverage more. They're asked to do a lot of things. They're asked to be very, very versatile. They're almost like a big safety now in some of the things that they're asked to do. Malachi can drop back into coverage. He can attack. He can be a guy that blitzes and is really effective shedding an offensive lineman making a play. I really like Malachi. Don't disagree with you at 8 necessarily, but he's a guy that really, if he ends up being the 8th best prospect, that says a lot for this group, because that means there are at least 8 legit Pac-12 talents, because I think Malachi, no question, is going to end up with a Pac-12 offer or 2. Number 7 on your list, Jesuit offensive lineman Travis Spreen, 6'3", 265 pounds. It's pretty rare for a center to be a big-time prospect, but Travis Spreen, I think, not unarguably, but as of right now, I would say for his class, he's got to be the top center on the whole West Coast. Started for Jesuit as a freshman at center, which is incredible because they're asked to do a lot of things. People don't always realize how smart a center has to be. For Travis to be able to do that at the high school level at Jesuit, a state power, pretty impressive. Travis Spreen's got a chance to be a real good one.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of offers. I couldn't agree more. I put that in my piece this past week with regards to Travis. I think he's going to be a multi-offer, probably half the Pac-12, if not more. He could definitely be the top center on the West Coast. And before he's done, depending on his continued progression, and he could be one of the better centers in America. He's that good. And when you start for 4 years playing varsity football at a school like Jesuit, I mean, that speaks for itself. Coach John Andreas, his line coach, and him training with Lenny as well. I mean, all of the variables, all the factors that go in, him being a super smart kid on top of all that, he's going to have high-end academic D1s after him. So he's going to have a lot of options, and another kid that could garner a few early offers, I mean, in the next couple months, just from schools that say, look, we know we're going to go on this kid eventually, so we might as well offer him now. So I really, really like Travis, just a super good kid.
We talk about kind of inside football stuff. Offensive linemen are just a different breed. They're different. They're goofy kids. They're often smart, but it's a whole different personality than a quarterback or receiver. Travis is the epitome of that offensive line. He's goofy, he's smart, he's funny, he takes pride in doing the dirty work. He's just a true offensive lineman in the very sense of the word, and it's really exciting to see the progress he's even made in the last 2 months. Like you've already said, he's obviously talented and going to have some Pac-12 offers. Number 6 on your list, Central Catholic linebacker Elijah Winston, the younger brother of Oregon signee Lamar Winston. He's already, as a sophomore, 6'3", 220 pounds. The first time I saw him was Central Catholic's third game of the year last year. They were 0-2, playing Oregon City, a game that went into overtime, and they couldn't get anything going. They were struggling. And they needed somebody to make a play, and the offense was stalled out, so they needed the defense to make a play. I believe he blocked a punt or a field goal and had either an interception or fumble recovery, but he had 2 turnover, game-changing, momentum-changing plays when they needed it most. And to me, more than anything, that says gamer and playmaker, and that's what I want out of my linebacker, an athletic guy who steps up and can make a game-changing play on the defensive side of the ball. I love Elijah Winston. He's a guy for me that absolutely, I know you have him at 6, I get it. To me, he's way up there. I think Elijah Winston has a chance to be the best linebacker this state's produced, other than Daniel Green, in a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, right now it's just kind of a wait and see, and that's
Yes.
the thing with sophomores is you're still waiting to see. Him and Malachi were both honorable mention all conference Mount Hood linebackers this past year. He was another kid that was out in Vegas with us, and it's like, dude, really? You're 15, 16? What? Like, really? I mean, because what's he going to look like in 2 years? I mean, when he gets in college, when they get him in the weight room and eating the way they want him to and this and that, I mean, he's going to be an absolute freak. Not that he's not right now, but just with all of his intangibles and everything that, as good as he is right now, I 100% agree with you. I mean, he could be at the very top of this list somewhere before all is said and done. And once again, that's where these being sophomores, I mean, that's what makes it fun that we get to watch them grow.
Well, I don't disparage your pick. I mean, 6th makes sense to me given the group we have above him right now. I think it fits right now. I think if you were taking a Polaroid, which is what this is, it's a snapshot of what it looks like right now. I think he's probably about the 6th best prospect in the state. But again, when we're talking upside, like you've already mentioned, 2 more years, he could be 6'4", 235 in high school. That's crazy and mobile. He's a dangerous, dangerous man on a football field. Or not quite a man, but looks like one. Really talented kid. I really like Elijah. I'm really excited to see where he goes. Number 4, Jesuit athlete, Trey Lowe, the younger brother of former Oregon wide receiver Keenan Lowe. We've talked about this. There are a number of younger brothers on this list. There's still more to come. But Trey Lowe's really talented, 5'10", 180 pounds. He's another guy that's a playmaker, cornerback, wide receiver. Where do you see him playing, and what's his ceiling?
I mean, he's probably going to run the ball behind that line next year with Travis Spreen, Jackson Kirkland, and the Dahl brothers. You go 6'7", 6'4", 6'4", 6'4", and then let Trey do his thing at the running back spot. But he'll project as a slot at the collegiate level, return some punts and kicks. He averaged 21.8 yards a touch last year on a team where Tally got the ball a majority of the time. So it's going to be fun for kids like Trey Lowe and Demetrius Douglas, who will now get to do their thing behind these 6'4" to 6'7" behemoths. And just, I mean, in the open field, good luck, right? I mean, he's that guy. He's that game breaker. And watching his older brother, watching Keenan do his thing, super humble, super good kids. And Trey is going to be a Metro League Player of the Year favorite this year and one of the top players in Oregon.
Number 4, Tigard cornerback, wide receiver Braden Lenzy. Started for Tigard as a freshman. Incredibly talented, one of the fastest kids in the country. I don't even think that's debatable. Ran a laser time 4.47. His 20-yard shuttle time for about 2 months was the fastest time in the country. It was recently topped in an ESPN regional camp, I think in LA. But for about 2 months there, he was considered the fastest sophomore in the country. And he's no joke. What do you see from Braden Lenzy? I'd like to see him fill out. He's at 6 foot 165 right now. I'd like to see him at 6 foot 6'1", 180. But I really like the projection and what he's got potentially if he can gain 10, 15 pounds.
Yeah, I think he's grown 3 inches. I mean, he's probably 6 foot, almost pushing 6'1". He just a couple weeks ago beat Savon Ahmed in the 200 meters. Which, as most people, if you don't know Savon Ahmed, he's been offered by like everyone. And
he's a 4-star player in the state of Washington, the number 1 skill position player in the state of Washington. Offers from USC, Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, most of the Pac-12, starting to hear nationally, and really could end up being a 5-star talent.
Yeah, I mean, B. Lenzy is. We love all these kids, but I mean, B. Lenzy is definitely one of my favorites. I think he projects super, super high just because of that speed. You can't teach speed. I mean, he's at 4.47 now. He's probably going to be a low 4.4 kid before he's done. And when we were out in Vegas, he was breaking people off. I mean, he had a couple touchdowns, about 6 or 7 catches, just in between people doing his thing. It's just fun to watch. And to start as a freshman, and we've talked about this multiple times, at Tigard, at 5'9", a buck 40 or whatever he was, and do as well as he did, you knew he was going to be legit. And now he's got, he's 6 foot, like you said, 160, 165, and before he's all done, and he's 6'1", 180 or whatever, I mean, I think he's going to have most of the Pac-12. I know there's a couple schools that are going to go on him probably relatively soon, and I can't say enough good things about Braden Lindsey.
To give people an idea, Braden Lindsey's number 4 on this list. He's already visited Ohio State and Purdue. So when we're talking about how good this class could be, when the number 4 sophomore in the state has already visited Ohio State, we're talking about a special group, which leads me into Talanoa Hufanga, Crescent Valley athlete. I always want to say Central Catholic. It's Crescent Valley athlete, 6'1", 190. His older brother TJ is a linebacker at Oregon State, and he's at number 3, and I totally agree with that placement, but he's the most offered sophomore in the group right now. He's got offers from Utah, Washington State, Oregon State, and he just picked up another one. I'm blanking on it. Do you happen to know? BYU. That's right. He just picked up BYU as well. So he's got 4 big-time offers already. Talanoa is a kid that I don't remember how this worked, but we were at a camp together, and you either told me about him and then I saw him, or I saw him and asked you and then you explained to me. But I think it went that way, where I saw a kid working out and went, oh my gosh, who is that? And you said, oh, that's Talanoa. He's a freshman.
No, he's an 8th grader.
He was an 8th grader. Yeah. That's right. About to be a freshman. Yeah. I think it was the summer. And just couldn't believe how incredibly talented he was and how athletic he was for his size. Talanoa is a special kid. We've known it for 2.5, 3 years now.
Go watch his film. I mean, anybody that hasn't watched his film, I mean, it's the reason these schools are like, yeah, let's offer now. I mean, it's a matter of trying to be that first school to show him some love and hopefully get on his radar and say, look, I was one of the first schools to offer you. Here's what we can provide. Talanoa is just a special talent. I mean, if you watch like some of his clips on Facebook of him dunking over 6'6" dudes. I mean, just a freak athlete, and then
it's unreal. He's unreal.
Yeah, he'll be a 4-year varsity QB, projecting as an athlete, but as a safety, he'll come up and smack you. He doesn't look like in any way a sophomore, or when he was a freshman, he was almost physically dominant in varsity football games. So he's just the speed speaks for itself, and then just with his strength and physicality, still being so young, another kid that we should all be super excited to see in a year or two, because God knows what he's going to look like.
Yeah, and he really is a kid that when we talk about seeing a kid early and saying, who is that, or that guy could develop, I saw him and assumed when he was between his 8th grade and freshman year, I assumed he was a real prospect that I hadn't seen yet that was a sophomore or a junior. I had no idea that he was an 8th grader going to be a freshman, and he's grown since then and developed since then. He looks like a senior in high school, no question. He's athletic like an elite senior, and he's still only a sophomore. He's got a chance to be incredibly special, and his highlight film is going to be so fun to watch by his senior year. There's going to be some plays on there that people just cannot believe. He's unreal. I mean, he could be a guy that spins away from a guy, jumps over a linebacker, runs over a safety, and scores. I mean, that's the kind of player that he is. And yet, he's still behind these 2 guys. South Medford wide receiver Chase Cota, the cousin of Oregon signee Brady Breeze, the son of Oregon Duck great Chad Cota, a safety who went on to have an 8-year career in the NFL with the Saints and Panthers, I believe. Chase Cota is 6'3", 180 pounds, might now be 185. He looks bigger. He said he's gained 5 to 10 pounds, and I believe it. I saw him in the state finals in basketball, had a chance to chat with him. He's rated the number 69 sophomore in the country, the number 3 wide receiver in the country, and he was making plays over all league and all state guys in the 7-on-7 camps as a freshman. He's already maybe the best receiver in the state, not to disparage or discredit some of the other guys on this list that are juniors, even in the class of 2017, but I think he's one of the best route runners and has NFL-sized hands, by the way, combine hands, already.
Yeah, Chase is, I mean, you can kind of look at everything you just said, everything you just referenced, and, I mean, he potentially could have offers by Alabama's, those type of schools. I mean, he's that good. He's going to be probably 6'4", 200 pounds by the time he's done. And with those genes and those intangibles, that South Medford 2018 class, they got Caleb Franklin, Jalen Parnell, Robbie Patterson throwing in the ball. So they got a super talented 2018 class. So they won't be able to just double Chase.
Right.
So if you have to guard these other guys and you go one-on-one with Chase, I mean, good luck. Yeah,
Done
I mean,
for.
so they are going to expose people, and South Medford should have a real shot moving forward. And then we don't necessarily get to see them as much as we would like, obviously, because they're down by the Cali border. But Chase will be a guy that I think, I mean, he obviously needs to get out on the circuit because he'll be able to probably obtain some additional offers pretty quickly. He had that Oregon State offer early, and obviously you really can't go wrong with the frame and the genes. So I'm a super good kid between the Codas and the Breeze family. I mean, once again, we talk about a lot of good kids, but just genuinely can't say enough good things about the people, the family members. I mean, some of the kindest, most genuine people you'll ever want to meet. And Chase is another one of those kids. So super fun to root for. You know, these are the type of kids that you want to see do well, and they're not going to go do something stupid off the field. So I think Chase Cota is going to be at least a 4-star. You know, we'll see. Maybe we'll see where he ends up, but I think he will be offered by some of the top schools in America.
In terms of recruiting, Oregon's going to be tough to beat. And I know Alabama, if Alabama's sitting there with an offer, that's going to be tough to turn down. Stanford, academically, for some of the kids in Oregon, they have a hard time turning that down, and I completely understand that. But Chase has dreamed of playing with Brady at first the varsity level at South Medford. Brady transferred to Central Catholic, and that hurt Chase a little bit. Not on a personal level, he wasn't mad at his brother, but just, you know, we always dreamed of playing together. And they still both openly talk about, we still dream of playing together. Well, Brady's at Oregon. So what does that tell you? Chase really loves the Ducks. He still goes to games all the time. But to give people an idea how hard he's being recruited, Chase was already invited and visited Alabama and Notre Dame between his freshman and sophomore year. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen for very many freshmen. He's incredibly special. And the very first time I saw him, I'd heard about him. He was supposed to be this big-time kid. And you hear that sometimes and you watch him, and they're going against juniors and seniors, and you go, yeah, he looks good. He can hold his own, but I'm not blown away. The elite Barton Football Academy Oregon team was playing the underclass team in a scrimmage, and some of the guys weren't there, but there were first-team All-State guys on defense for the elite team. They were down, the underclass team was down a score late with like 4 seconds left, and Chase caught a Hail Mary in the end zone over 2 first-team All-State defensive backs to win the game. And there was no celebration. There was nothing. He just gave the ball to the official, who was just like a coach or whatever, and just walked off the field. It's like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make plays. That's why I'm here. And it's like, man, but aren't you excited you're a freshman just making plays over elite guys? He's only grown since then. He's only gotten better since then. I'm really excited about Chase. And like you said, his stock will elevate in part because he comes from a football family, and he is a zero question off the field guy. There's no question he's going to have success academically. There's no question he's a good kid. He won't get himself in trouble. His stock will raise because there are kids in that top 50 who have egos, who have off the field issues. You don't have to worry about that with Chase. Number 1 kid on the board, been number 1 for a long time. Lake Oswego offensive lineman Dawson Jaramillo, 6'5", 6'6", 290 pounds. He's gained 25 to 30 pounds of muscle since he started lifting weights at the end of last season. Rated the number 10 player in the country for the sophomore class, the number 2 offensive tackle. Already hearing from Oregon State, visited Cal recently. Still has a chance to be the most recruited offensive lineman in the history of the state.
Yeah, I think this is a really big offseason for Dawson because we've been hearing about him for a couple years now, and we've since his 8th grade year, he's been on the radar nationally. It's not very common when a kid gets put on that kind of pedestal that early. So he has all of the tools, all of the intangibles, size, speed, overall athleticism. He's also a really good baseball player. So he's playing baseball right now, and a lot of his time will be taken up by that. So
Yep.
We'll see how he manages his time this offseason. I once again, just to reiterate once again, you can't say enough good things about the kid and the family. We're
Right.
fortunate to have all of these top kids that we're talking about genuinely be like super good people with good folks and everything, and Dawson's another one. So I think it'll be an interesting offseason with Coda and Talanoa and probably Braden Lindsay and a few of these guys having offers right now. Dawson is another kid that has a lot of schools right there. They're sitting there, and we'll see when they decide to extend that first one. But he's another kid that I'm excited to see this offseason. He works with Alex Lindenkohl on a consistent basis, and you can't really go wrong with Dawson. There's a reason he's ranked the number 10 overall athlete in the country, the number 1 or 2 O lineman in America. He's that good. Those guys from those specific services have that job for a reason. So I got really good things to say about Dawson. I'm excited to see what he does this offseason.
Still a lot of growth, but one Pac-12 assistant coach told me that he was the top prospect on the West Coast. And obviously that includes California, Washington. There's some big-time talent in those areas. So for him to be the number 1 prospect on the West Coast already says a lot about where he could be and could end up. Jordan, if you had to pick a guy that's going to rise at least 2 spots, now obviously Dawson and Chase are 1-2, so they can't. If you had to pick a guy that's going to rise at least 2 spots by the time he's a senior on this list, who would you pick?
Elijah Winston. I think you made a great point. Just with his size, his speed, my younger brother theory, or
younger brother always being better than the older brother, or often being better than the older brother.
Percentage-wise, if you have a group of 2, 3, 4 people, that younger brother has to survive in that family, and
Right.
they have to compete against their older brothers. And Elijah, you can tell just how advanced he is and as big as he is with that speed, and another really, really good kid. I think he could end up being at the top of this list. I think it'll be a really telling year for Central Catholic. I mean, they got a bunch of dudes once again, and they're gonna need to go out and show what they can do. And Elijah has a chance to put himself in a really good position this offseason, where a lot of kids wait till their junior year. He's a kid that could grab a bunch of offers this offseason as a sophomore.
Yeah, and again, we go to Portland State, and if I'm Portland State, I'm offering a few of these guys, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see Elijah pick up an offer from Oregon State or Oregon or Washington State, somebody like that, somebody in the Northwest, an elite program in the Northwest fairly quickly, because the projection is so high. Jordan, thanks for being here. As always, I really appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your top 10. Check out the top 50 list where?
BattlePrepWest.com.
Yes,
sir.
Perfect. So check out battleprepwest.com to see that entire top 50 list. Again, it's a top 10, and then the next 40 are honorable mention. But any of those 40 guys could easily jump into that top 10 with a big year in the weight room or just simply growing. Thanks, man.
Yeah, buddy.